You are just at the beginning of a full hour of insight and investing wisdom here at the SALT Conference from Sam Zell, the founder and chairman of Equity Group Investments, a legend in real estate investing, but a man with many points of view on many things. We're going to get into them, and we'll be talking about his book, Am I Being Too Subtle? Straight Talk from a Business Rebel. Sam, those who haven't read your book ought to start reading it right now. Mark Mobius just started reading it. He's going to join us in a few minutes. But I'd like to begin our conversation talking about the here and now. President Trump came into office with broad support from the business community, yourself included.
Yes.
Are you concerned by what you see coming out of the White House today, yesterday, last week, and in recent weeks?
Well, I certainly am concerned about the level of cacophony that is emanating. The question is, how much of it is valid? I don't remember any president that had more leaks and more innuendos than what's been going on here. And I think I'm not exactly sympathetic with the president, and yet I'm very sympathetic that it just keeps happening, and it comes down to, have you stopped beating your wife?
Well, is it happening for a reason? In other words, are there things that the public needs to know, which the public wouldn't otherwise know, and perhaps which Congress wouldn't otherwise know if they didn't find their way into the popular discourse via, say, a leak?
Do you think that the amount of activity in the White House is any more today than it was under Obama or Clinton or anybody else? But we never had anything like this. And this is a sieve. This isn't a leak. This is a sieve.
We also have no reason to believe that President Obama, President Bush, or President Clinton asked a director of the FBI to stop an investigation.
Isn't that based on a memo written by the FBI director to himself? Who watched?
They're called they're called contemporaneous notes.
I understand that, but they're contemporaneous notes executed by somebody who's advocating his position, which is that's fine, but that shouldn't be held up as a holy grail.
I think you know what
I could write notes about our conversation that would be a lot different than what you write, right?
Perhaps a little impressionistic, but you know what I'm getting at. I'm trying to understand how you see things through the eyes of an investor. Are you concerned about the president's judgment and his suitability for office, his ability to do the things you want him to do, you're counting on him to do as president of the United States?
Well, I'm a citizen of the United States, and I'm counting on the president to be a leader. I think the president has the competency, and all of this unfit for office stuff is just a bunch of stuff.
Just a bunch of stuff?
Just a bunch of stuff. You got 24-hour cable news networks that have to have material to last 24 hours for, and they're creating it.
Some people might say the firing of an FBI director, the apparent disclosure of confidential intelligence to the Russians, the possibility that he may have asked for the same FBI director to cease and desist on an investigation are more than just a 24-hour news cycle.
Depending on...
There are things for all Americans to consider, contemplate, and to decide on.
Yeah, the reality is, I don't know, you don't know, and everything is being put out there as though it was Holy Grail. And I don't think that's a valid assumption.
Here's another way of thinking about it. The battle cry for President Obama's critics, at least his critics in corporate America, was uncertainty, right? The president was incapable of creating a business climate certain enough that companies would invest and hire. You're a risk taker, right? That's your business.
Yes.
So I want to know, what's worse for a risk taker? The uncertainty of Obama or the unpredictability of Trump?
Well, I don't think Mr. Trump is so unpredictable. I think if you look at his cabinet, if you look at the decisions he's made so far, I don't think they create the kind of anti-business environment that was prevalent in the Obama years. So I'm not sure that the comparison is valid.
Okay. As you're well aware, a number of Republican senators have expressed concern over what we believe to have come out of the White House. Again, much of it remains subject to confirmation. Without Republicans, it's going to be very difficult for the president to advance his agenda.
I agree.
Does that concern you?
Well, that concerns me, but in that question is the assumption that starts with without Republicans.
Without enough Republicans.
Just as we've seen the president modify his views on things, we've seen our politicians take very strong positions and then reverse themselves.
Is that what you meant by cacophony when we started the conversation?
Certainly part of the cacophony, for sure.